Let me introduce our next speaker. Her name is Ratna Rathore. She's a very smart, sincere, and successful lady. And on top of that, she's a believer. With 18 years of work experience in the private wealth management, she is currently working with an MNC bank in India as Vice President in Investments Product. She has worked in Singapore, Hong Kong, London, Middle East, and Switzerland, while being based in Singapore for the past 7 years in the financial service sector. She is a visiting faculty at IIM Lucknow, where she teaches leadership and organizational behavior to the first-year students. She is a BCom honors graduate from Jesus and Mary College and have completed her MBA from Symbiosis, Pune. Over to you, Ratna.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for that fantastic start to the evening, Gloria Auntie, and thank you, Sonia Auntie, for this introduction. And it is an absolute honor and privilege to be part of each of you this evening, and I'm so glad that Sonia Auntie invited me to be part of this discussion. So I'm going to try and ensure that I keep to the standards that Gloria Auntie has already laid out for the next 30 minutes that has been allotted to me. And, I love stories because I just think that they remain with you. I don't like facts and figures, even though I work with them from Monday to Friday. So, and I used to pass my history and eco exams because I used to learn those chapters like stories and recreate them when I used to write my final exams because it was just very simple to remember. So I need you to help me for the next 30 minutes to lay out a story on practicing investments and savings. And you may wonder, what do stories have to do with saving and investment? We'll discover. So just imagine for a minute right now that, it's 6 p.m. and I usually take my cup of tea around 5 if I'm able to manage, or 6. So this is just about the time when I'm reaching out for my cup of tea. So let's just imagine that, you're settling down. It's Saturday evening. You're settling down with a book or maybe your next Netflix series that you may be watching, or maybe just some time alone or for prayer or devotion. And you find that you're not alone. And I hope you're imagining all this with me, okay? And then you look beside you, and while this is my heart's desire that I'm able to see Jesus face to face, and I don't know when that's going to happen, but God is sitting beside you, and it's a fiction, okay? So we're creating a fiction here. God is sitting beside you. He looks at you. And he says, who are you? Now, firstly, I would be speechless if I had God sitting next to me. I'll probably pass out or something. But even if I don't, and if he asked me, who are you? I think my first response would be, God, you should know. You created me and, you already named me and all of those things. So you should know who I am. But God is asking me, who are you? So I'm going to take a quick brief pause over here. And I invite you to answer this for me, that if God were to ask you, who are you? What will you tell him? Apart from the fact that you'll say, hi, I'm Ratna, or hi, I'm Gloria Auntie, or hi, I'm Sonia Auntie. He knows that. But he wants to know, who are you? It's like a 30-minute elevator pitch that we, teach. Like if you were in an elevator with Mukesh Ambani or one of these really rich guys, and if you had to introduce yourself, how would you do it in like 30 seconds? It's called an elevator pitch. So if you had to introduce yourself to God in 30 seconds, what would it be? Come on, go for it.
We're all speechless.
Yes, I figured that, but if you had to.
Yeah, I think it's just difficult to even imagine that I would be in front of God. But if I happen to be in the situation as you portrayed, maybe I would say that, yes, I'm daughter of God.
Okay. Daughter of God. Sounds good as a beginning. What else? Would you show off with your, I've done this, I've studied so much, da-da-da? I would.
I think as a tendency to introduce the kind of like the thing, maybe I might even go to that. Yes, I have served in Sunday school for so long, these, and I have done these, knowing that if I happen to know that He is the God, or in that case, and if I didn't know that He is God, then maybe I may go in a worldly introduction.
What would that be? He's interested in your worldly and non-worldly aspects both. I can assure you that.
Yeah, I think I'll grab the opportunity and I would say, like, Lord, I'm like David. Well, I'm like David, a woman's after God's own heart. I would say something like that.
That's pretty cool. Sonia Auntie would say, I'm a very well established businesswoman, God. I hope you know that. What else?
I think we would all, most of us, I'm sure, would like to impress God on who we are and what journey we have been through. I think that would be the first introduction. Maybe I don't know. I cannot speak for others, but we normally tend to impress others. We normally tend to impress God, what we have done. So that might be the first, reaction or response.
Okay, sure. The reason I ask this question is that when it comes to introducing ourselves, we start with our name, we start with our maybe what we've done. If we are married, we talk about who we are married to. If we have kids, we tell their names. If you are an established business person, you may talk about that. If you're a professional, you may talk about that, and so on and so forth, right? And we somehow look for identity on the things that we either have done or possess or would like to do, and many other things. And before I just, there is a reason why I asked this question, and there is a reason why we are building out a story. But, if God were to sort of, let me begin once again by setting the record straight over here, even before you would have started to answer this question. God created women. How many of you agree? Everybody does? Okay.
Yes.
And He said that everything that I create is very good. So with that logic, you're good, right? I would think you're very good. Now, if I had to define who I am, whether I'm defining it to God or I'm defining it to the world, I would say I'm very good. I'm a work of art because God has created me. And then I would use the word good to define myself. And then I'd call up my the person who delivers food to my home or ration to my home, who brings milk or vegetable vendor, and say, can you please give me some good rice? Can you please give me some good tea leaves? Can you give me some good pulses? Can you give me some good Karela and bhindi and all of those things? And he'd be like, sure, ma'am, how much? And I would just say, just the good amount. And he would ask me again, how much? Now, God has established a measure for me called good. But that good is not good enough to explain in our worldly matters that we live in, and which is the debate that we were listening to just a while back, saying we live today, we live in this world. There are certain parameters which define good, better, best. Those parameters apply when we deal with our finances, with our savings, with our investments, and so on and so forth. But guess what? Would you think that being a Christian and being a good businesswoman, being a Christian and being a professional, being a Christian and having money is not related? I just want to remind you about Proverbs 31. Have you read it? If you haven't, I assure you, you do not need to go beyond that as a reminder on what is saving, what is investing, and who are you. So with that, let me now start my presentation. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm hoping that you're going to be able to see this. So we're discussing today practicing saving and investment. And what I just want to reveal to you, ladies, is that God has already made you, or has already fit in that program into you, where saving and investment comes automatically. He also knows very well you're a Christian and you believe in him. He knows very well that you're living in the world, and which is why, even before he created you, he already had programmed the woman, as he describes it in Proverbs 31, on how to learn to save and invest. Thank you for somebody who's highlighting this for me. Appreciate that. Okay. I already asked you who you are, and now let me reveal to you who you actually are. I'm going to take a minute to read a few verses to you. And I'm reading from Proverbs 31, and I'm beginning at verse 10. So bear with me and listen carefully. Who can find a virtuous wife? For her worth is far above rubies. The heart of a husband safely trusts her, so he will lack no gain. She does him good and not evil. All the days of her life she seeks wool and flax, and willingly works with her hands. She is like the merchant ships. She brings her food from afar. She also rises while it is yet night. And the proverb goes on and on right until Psalm 31. You will be very surprised to know, but many of my financial webinars that I have done where I have addressed women, I have used this proverb as a base to build any discussion around saving and investment, because I cannot think of a woman who can be trusted, who is a hard worker, who is a businesswoman, who knows how to negotiate. She plans, she's fashionably trendy, she's in shape, she's protective, and she's disciplined. Now, who says that you are not this woman? Because this is the woman that is described in the Bible, and this is the Jesus that Gloria Auntie was just referring to. If you read verse 13, 14, 15, 19, and 24, 27, if you have your Bibles, you can look at it now or you can look at it later. It talks about her being a hard worker. She gets up in the morning. She prepares the food for her household. She ensures that there is food not only for her, but even for her helpers. She then goes out and seeks food from afar. We just heard about Khan Market. Some of us go to several places to maybe find a particular kind of a vegetable or some clothes that you like to wear. So we spread out, right? She negotiates. Now, you may ask me, where is she negotiating? Read the verse 16. It says, she considers a field and buys it. From her profits, she plants a vineyard. Like, look at that. She is a businesswoman who is in a position where she's negotiating the price of the field or a hill or whatever that she may be willing to buy. She's creating a profit on it and she's deploying it back. Wow, that is something that we can clearly take away from, because that's exactly what every fund manager today in the market is wanting to do and is not wanting to do. And did we just hear about the fact that, if you're a woman and if you know the Lord, then you cannot be fashionable? Not true. That you cannot be in shape? Not true. Read verse 17. She girds herself with strength and strengthens an arm. So she's disciplined and she's taking care of herself, and so on and so forth. Now, why am I telling you this, right? Because all of you ladies who are on the call right now, including me, are already doing these things. You are saving and you're meeting the needs of your household. You are investing for your household. Hopefully, you're staying in shape. You wear fine clothes, and that is exactly what it is written over here as well, that she ensures that her household is clothed in scarlet and fine linen. You network. What does that mean? It means that you're going out like merchant ships to procure what you need in the house. You negotiate and you make profit. Now, if I were not a Christian, and if I were reading this proverb, I would read it as a lesson in finance. And I'm not kidding when I tell you that I would, read it as a lesson in finance. So what I'm just trying to tell you over here is that saving and investing has already been fitted in by our Father into your DNA. So please, firstly, know who you are. You are a woman of God. You are a Christian, and you already have this program of saving and investing fitted into you, as I just described for you from Proverbs verse 31. Now, the question comes, how do I use this program for the benefit of the household, for the benefit of the community, and how do you remain a good steward of the resources that have been provided to you? I found this one particular line, which I mentioned over here, this comment, very interesting. It says, when you invest, you are buying a day that you don't have to work. Think about it, right? I would love to have a day where I can go to do nothing, just put my feet up and just not work, because of the fact that sometime in my past I had done that investment and I'm reaping the benefit from it. Now, it is easier said than done, and especially now when we had this COVID-19 impact, which came into our lives absolutely unannounced. Many of us had to deal with it in different forms. Some of us probably didn't have those kind of savings. Some of us were not ready or equipped to cope with our businesses. I can give you a personal example that my family runs a travel business. And if there is no travel, there is no business. So that's quite clear that we were not ready to deal with such a pandemic situation, which probably would never have occurred in our lives that we will ever walk through that situation. So the question now is, how do you start saving and investing money? And before that, the question is, do you know the difference? So, sometimes we use the word saving and investing together, but I just want to tell all of you that they are absolutely two different words. And what I mean by that, allow me to show you. What it means is that, very simply put, investing is something that you're purchasing with the intention of generating more income from it. If I have a pot of money, or if I have some money and I put it under my pillow, that's not investing. In fact, that's not even saving. It's just being silly, right? Saving, very simply put, in the simplest of words, is if you have some money in your bank account. I'm assuming all of us have a bank account, and you've put it in your savings account. That's great. You've saved it up. But that doesn't mean you have invested it. Investing means you've taken that money, taken a conscious decision, and put it either into a stock or into a mutual fund, or you've bought a life insurance policy, or maybe you have purchased a PPF bond, or maybe a Reserve Bank of India bond, because any of these things that you do is going to make your money grow slightly more. So that's the difference. And I would urge you to stop me if you think I'm too fast, and if you need me to repeat a few things, feel free to interject and ask a question. Now, the goal of doing a saving is, you are just saving up for a rainy day, you're planning for an emergency or for an expense. But the goal of investing is that you are taking a very, very conscious decision to make returns from that money. Now, understandably, having your money under a pillow or in a saving bank account has very, very low risk. What max can happen, right? The bank may just go belly up, but then I'm sure our government, and we take informed decisions when opening our bank accounts. So the risk that you have with that pot of money is low, as compared to an investment decision that you may take on some of these options that you have in the market. And we'll talk about it, don't worry. So we will talk about where all can you invest in some time from now. So the risk goes slightly higher, but then so is the return, right? Higher the risk, higher the return, lower the risk, lower the return. It applies everywhere. So keeping your money in the bank account is very low risk, but then it's not going to get you anything. I think, if I'm not mistaken, today, the average, if you were to put your money into in any MNC bank, then they would give you around 2.5% or 3% as a rate of interest. Maybe if your money is with an Indian private bank like a maybe an HDFC or a Kotak Bank, you will earn maybe around a 3.5%, 4%, but it's quite low, right? And if you were to take that money and maybe put it into some of these other investment options, you may earn maybe 5.5%, 6%, 7%, depending on where you're putting your money. So your returns can be higher. Now, the other difference between a saving and an investing is liquidity. What do I mean by liquidity? Like if you were to, take your ATM card and walk up to an ATM and put it there, if you have money in the bank account, it'll give you the money. But if you've made an investment, then you can't just in the evening walk to a bank, which may or may not be open, and say, hey, I made this investment, can I get it back? There will be some turnaround time of maybe 1 year, 2 year, 1 month, 2 months, depending on where you've invested. So please remember some basic facts that saving is not equal to investing. They are both absolutely different. Now, I'm going to move forward and I'm going to move to part 2 of after you have understood that there is a difference between saving and investing. What I also need you to appreciate and go along with me in understanding is there are phases as we have in our life, wherein first we are we finish our education, then we start working. Some of us take a career break, or some of us don't have a career and we're at home. Then you go, either you grow as a family or maybe you don't grow as a family. Then you become older and you plan for retirement and so many other things. Similarly, your money also has a life stage. Your money doesn't stay exactly the way it is, right? And what do I mean by that? And I will just come to that in a minute. You will, if you just take a minute to think about this, you spend more time in spending your money in a life cycle than you spend in earning it. So what does that mean? Let's say if you are, you've done your school, college, and then you start working. Some of us end up working earlier than the others, and I understand that. So let's say you start working typically when you're 18 years of age or 19 years of age. You continue to earn in the retirement age, let's assume is 60. So you realize that you are starting at 18 and you're going on earning till 65. So having said which, throughout this entire phase, you are having to earn and save and spend at the same time. And as you progress, your spending only keeps getting more. And remember one formula that I'm going to leave you with. N is equal to T, where N will always be more than T. And what is N? N is nothing but the number of hands or the number of mouths reaching out for that same pot of money as time progresses. So first you were single, then you probably got married, then you had children, then you had parents who became older. So as time progressed, the N, or the number of hands reaching out for the same resource, or the number of mouths which now you need to feed are increasing. So just to put it in perspective, what I'm really talking about is it's a cycle, right? You earn, you save, you want to grow, and you want to preserve. Now, can all of this happen at all life stages? The answer to that is yes. But should all be happening at all the time? The answer to that is no. What does that mean? You're probably in a better position to increase your earning when you're younger as compared to when you're 55 or 60. Okay, logically. You are in a better position to save when you have few hands and mouths to feed versus when your family grows and you have to take care of children, their education needs, their marriage needs. You may also have to take care of siblings. You may also have to take care of parents who have grown older, and so on and so forth. So when do you really get the time to grow your money? So, all of us are on this treadmill, right? Those people like me who work, we get a salary on the 30th of the month, and I don't know where my salary goes by the 30th of next month. So I call it a treadmill. It's a work treadmill where you're basically running from one payday to the other payday. But at least there is a payday. For those who are business women on this call, or those who are managing household expenses, and I take my maximum learning from my mother, because managing household is nothing compared to working with a bank, I can assure you that. Um, I want you to think very closely about it. You can either continue to spend all your life just earning, and not saving a penny, or you can just, take a minute to think that, are you doing all of these things together at the same time, or is there a plan to it? And if there is not a plan to what you have thought, then I'm going to spend the next few minutes working that plan along with you. Now, bottom line, or what I'm trying to tell you is, do now what you have to do and do not delay it. And why am I saying it? Very understandably, look at this graph that you can see on my screen. When you're in your 20s, growing up to 30s and 40s, you still have the ability to take risk, because maybe you don't have too many dependents. Maybe you are still able to switch jobs. Maybe your children are not grown up that much and school fees isn't that much. There are a lot of maybes that you can deal with. But if you have to deal with all of those maybes at 50s and 60s, you will agree with me that your ability to take risk will shrink. Like, if I were to go to my dad today, and if I had to make some money for him, I don't think if I go to him and tell him that, can I put your money in a Reliance stock because it's doing really well, I think he's going to say no, because today it's doing well. If tomorrow Trump does not win and he loses the elections, I don't know what's going to happen. But supposing that happens, then the markets are not going to like it and the stock may come down. So what do I tell him? That, hey, you gave me 100 rupees and I'm giving you 50 rupees back. But if I were to go to my brother, who's younger than me, and I tell him that, his name is Vikram, that Vikram, if you give me your money, I can double it up for you in probably 2 years, but there is a very high possibility that I may even half your money. So firstly, he is going to look at me and say, there's no way in hell I'm trusting you with my money. But even if I'm going to be able to convince him, his risk-taking ability at age between 30 and 40 is way higher than my dad, who's already 75 years plus. So do you see the difference? That the longer you delay, you are reducing your own chances of saving and of growing your own money that you may be wanting to either accumulate for yourself or to accumulate for your family or whatever be it. So now comes the important question, where do you invest? But before I proceed, if any one of you have any questions so far, this would be a good time to ask me. Otherwise, I can continue and we can talk about it at the end of the session. Okay, so I'm just going to continue now. And this is a section where I have just put forward some options. Now, I'm obliged to state this because I work with a bank, that everything that I'm saying over here is my personal opinion and it does not represent the firm I work with. And none of these investment options which you are seeing over here are guaranteed for their performances. But this is just to give you a snapshot of what's available to you if you decide to, say, take some money and put it aside to start earning, right? Start investing, right? The first very basic thing that we saw was that you can just leave your money in your bank account and you'll still earn maybe 2.5% to 3% as a rate of return. Or you can take that money and you can start investing in some of these options that you're seeing over here. Now, clearly, this is not the forum to get into details of what those options are, and I'm very happy to speak to you separately on it should you have any questions. But I'm just putting these out to you to help you know that as somebody who may want to begin the journey of investing if you've not done already, or as somebody who's already done it, these are some good options to explore. But one thing to remember is what may work for me may not work for you, and what may work for you may not work for me. And the reason is our risk appetites are different, our life stages are different, our time horizon is different. So, for example, a fixed deposit would work just fine for my dad, who's 75 years of age, because he wants zero risk on the money that he has now because it's post retirement, he's not earning anymore. This is the only part of money that he has, so no risk at all. But maybe for me, that's not a good option because I think I still have, let's say, another 40 years to go where I would want to continue to earn, and I'm in a position to take a little bit of risk. So I may go in for the ones marked in red as an investment option. Then there are those who are maybe at, in the middle, and they would say, you know what, I'm done with taking risk, but I'm also not okay to just have 2-3% return. No problem. You can look to invest in slightly long-term options like buying a post office scheme, or buying some Reserve Bank of India bonds, or taking a pension plan, and all of these things. Now, you will see that there are different color schemes over here. So the ones towards the red are clearly very, very risky, very, very aggressive in nature. Some of them are also not very liquid. So you have to be very careful while doing investment in those. But like I said, higher the risk, higher the reward. And the ones on the left-hand side, which are more purplish, are lower in terms of risk, but then they're also lower in terms of returns. So this is just to balance it out for you. You see over there gold and silver. Now, gold and silver can be purchased as actual jewelry. They can be purchased as funds. They can be purchased. Some families tend to purchase it as biscuits and store them. But mostly, what we have seen in the Indian household context is that people tend to purchase jewelry and save it up for occasions later, ahead in life for certain milestones. So it doesn't have to apply the same for you, but I'm just clarifying what it means to hold a gold or a silver. So if you have any questions on this, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to move forward to a question that I want to ask you. Now, it's great. We can just go on living our life, not having anything to save. We can, my co-host right at the beginning remarked saying nobody told us about saving up, our pocket money. And maybe at that point of time, we were not imparted the knowledge that it's important to save. So, you can just turn around and say, Ratna, why do I even need to invest? What's the big deal? I earned, or maybe I've saved up and I'm okay. We have 3 meals a day and we wear good food. We wear, reasonable clothes and I'm okay. I don't really think I need to invest. I would tend to disagree with this line of thought, and let me explain to you why I would disagree. This is why I would disagree. We all have a plan and we are headed to it like there is no tomorrow, whatever that plan may be, okay? But the reality is at the bottom. So while you are trying to get to your plan and there is that finishing line, but hey, guess what? Did you account for the storms? Did you account for the lightning? Did any one of you, including me, account for a pandemic situation that we are going through? Absolutely not, right? So the fact of the matter is that reality is a little bit different than the planning that we end up doing. Now, like I said, we live in uncertain times, and these are times that we would like to be prepared for. But before I move forward, this is something I spoke about in one of the webinars that I did. I had the opportunity to be invited to at BBCF. There is something known as black swan events, and swans are like really pretty creatures. So when somebody says black swan, you must think like, what's a black swan? Because we are so used to seeing pretty white swans. Now, usually a black swan in a financial parlance, very simply put, is an event which nobody was ever expecting for it to occur. But when it occurs, it has such a huge magnitude that you are not able to explain it. And apart from the magnitude, it has the ability to disrupt not just lives, but economies and governments. And if I take you back with me to the month of February, COVID-19 is a black swan event or a series of black swan events that made us go through. So what happened? This particular virus spread at an unprecedented pace, and it has impacted almost all countries in the world, if I'm not mistaken. Some of them are going through second and third spikes as we speak. Secondly, it disrupted everything. It disrupted our personal lives. It disrupted our professional lives. There was lockdowns. Our own country was in a lockdown for 3 months. That's unimaginable. And finally, how did the markets react? So when I say markets, I'm talking about equity markets. They all fell close to 35%. So anybody on this group, if you were invested, your money would have been half or less than half for that one time period when this particular pandemic happened, right? So I'm going back to this. Why to invest? So first, because your plan is very different from reality. Second, we live in uncertain times and we can have or be exposed to such events which I've just described you at any point of time. But I want you to think about this very carefully. And as a woman, I think it's important to acknowledge that just as the virtuous woman was described in Proverbs 31, the women of today are faced with some very real issues. Broken marriages, divorces, which have an immediate impact not only just on your emotional health, but on your financial health. Unforeseen health circumstances that can hit you anytime. Mothers who are single, who are raising children. Uh, uh, Ladies who are perhaps living or have abusive spouses. Sandwich moms. What do I mean by sandwich moms? Mothers who are having to take care of grown-up children because of delayed marriages in the homes. Not only that, they're also having to take care of their parents who are aging. So do you see where I'm coming from? You may also have in families manipulative siblings who may swindle you. I'm not saying it any one of us, but I'm just taking an example. So this is not personal. Who may take away all that you have earned so far. Because in your mind, you were thinking this is all going to be yours forever, but it's not. Death of a loved one. Now, these are all very personal. Now, let's talk about hard-hitting facts. Inflation. Simple math, okay? Let's say that you have done a fixed deposit for 5% and you're feeling very good. But inflation, or the money that you're paying to buy things, is at 7%. Are you making a return? The answer to that is no, because you are actually getting negative return on that, because the money you are spending to sustain your life today is much higher than what you're earning. Second, taxes. We live in a country of quite high taxes. If you're in the highest income tax bracket, then you end up paying 35% plus. But you have to account for any change in the tax regime of the country you're living with. Government policies, a war, an epidemic. I'm just putting it out in front of you because you can no longer just continue living without saving. You have to think about yourself, and you have to think about these circumstances that may come in your life, and I pray to God that they never do, but some realities that exist around us, and if we don't pay attention to it, you may find yourself in a situation where you have nothing. and which is not a good situation to be in. So in the end, I would just want to leave you with three words. And rather, I would want to leave you with a gem, which is GEM. It's not a difficult one to remember, but if you can adopt it, then I would think that my work is done. The first G of the gem is, irrespective of where you are in your life stage and the role that you're playing in your household, you've got to define your goal. And I believe that if you don't know where you're going, you'll probably never get there. So whether it is providing for the family, taking a vacation, taking an education loan, planning a family vacation, a marriage, buying a home, you have to define your goal and say, I want to get here. The minute you define your goal, you will automatically start working backwards to reach that goal. Gloria Auntie took an example and said, suddenly at the end of the month, you're saying, oh, I'm sorry, I spent everything. What do I do with the 10%? Put that 10% aside first and then plan your expenses. So it's a very, very simple approach. If you let's say earn for your family, if you run a shop, if you are a businesswoman, or if you're a salaried individual, make something known as a monthly budget, right? And it's very important. I do it for myself as well. And whether you're a homemaker or you're not a homemaker, in fact, if you're a homemaker, I would urge you to actually learn how to make a budget from a homemaker, because they manage the home so well, which maybe I'm not able to do with my Excel sheets. So point being, define your goal with clarity. Having a goal to say, and this is not the right goal to have in the current environment, I would assume, I want to buy a car. That's not a goal. A goal is, I want to buy a car by April 2021. That's a goal that you have set for yourself. So I'm just taking an example, right? That you have to be definitive in what you are describing as a goal for yourself. The most important goal I would want to leave you with is to ensure that you have enough saved for yourself. Because if you're secure, you're going to ensure that there's enough and more for the household as well. As you progress towards retirement, it is very important to have a concept of emergency fund as well as a retirement fund. They are completely different, but I just want to stick to the fact that a retirement fund is something that you will for sure have available to yourself as you grow older. Mostly saying, oh, I have a house somewhere over here and that's my retirement fund. No, it's not. Because at the time when you may need the money, either you may not get somebody to purchase that house for you, or things may be very different, or it could be disputed, it could be whatever. So the first rule of thumb is, your retirement fund should be liquid and it should be available to you when you need it. And it should be very, very clearly known that it belongs to you. Many times when we do advisory for a lot of our clients, there's a clash between family where everybody makes a claim to that retirement fund. It becomes very confusing. There are no nominees which are mentioned in bank accounts. Nothing is streamlined. So it's important to say Fund A belongs to Mr. A or B or C. While I know that in our Indian household context, we don't have these discussions. And the intent is not to create, a bifurcation. The intent is, if you have a joint account with whoever, it must be clear that there is also a nominee which is mentioned over there, so that if either of you, whoever you're holding the joint account, were not to be there, then the money just doesn't go to the government or just sort of disappears. So just some things that to think about for you to plan for these things, because we tend not to think about this. The E in the gem is, you have to keep yourself literate, right? And this screen over here shows it clearly that we are not watching movies anymore in a PVR hall, but we are now streaming them on Netflix. That's how swiftly the world has changed. So if the world has changed on how we watch movies, can you imagine how quickly it would have changed on how to save your money? There are no excuses to say, I'm sorry, I am not financially literate. I think that onus lies with you to at least read one business magazine or one newspaper, that will help you know simple things like which is a good bank, what are the ongoing fixed deposit rates, what is the government announcing. Keep yourself updated. It's very important because a lot of ladies I interact with who are either coming out of a broken marriage or who have probably never really cared about their finances. All that they have done is earned and got other people to spend, or their money has been used by others to spend, have no idea what's going on around them. So the E is to educate yourself on what's happening around you, and also be very careful about who are you taking your advice on finances from. It must be from a reputed financial advisor. Going out for a lunch with friends and asking them to draw out a financial plan for you on a piece of napkin is not good planning. So be careful about that, because your friend is in a different situation and you're in a different situation. So let's bear that in mind. Lastly, is the M of the gem, which is the method in how you want to invest. So I just took I just created this for you to know that what a difference it makes when you start to save and start investing that money early on in this age. So I'm sure that in the group today who I'm talking to, there are some of you who are 30, some of you are 35, some of you are 40, and some of you are 50. Now, look at the difference, right? If you were if you had started, and this is for somebody who's 60 years of age, if this individual had started investing when she was 30 years of age, amount of 5,000 rupees, today that value would be approximately 1.5 crores. But if that same individual had started investing when she was 50, she would just have, managed to create a corpus of 11 lakhs. Can you see the difference? So what am I saying over here? Simple math. 6 into 6 into 6 will always be greater into 6 plus 6 plus 6. And why is that? It's because of the eighth wonder of the world that I like to call, which is compounding, where what happens is let's say you have 100 rupees, you earn some interest on it, then that interest gets added back to that 100, and then you earn the next interest on that 100 plus interest, and it goes on and on and on and on. So you see, it compounds for you. So the method or the way you invest is very, very important. The simplest thing that you can do is just start investing on a monthly manner. And you don't have to invest 5,000. You can invest 500. There are enough and more opportunities today in which our government has provided, where you can invest as low as 500 rupees as well. So, this is just a thought I would like to leave you with, and this would be my final slide. And I would just want to, in the end, mention one thing, that there is no right way or wrong way to deal with your saving and your investment. The wrong thing would be you're not investing at all. The worst will be you're not even saving. So the first thing is, let's agree that you save, but that's not enough. Like I just told you, you have to invest.
We really, really thank you, all our Achan Sonia and Madam Gloria and Ratna. This is something that we have been really looking forward for a long time, to be a good person when it comes with the finance, managing as a Christian and as a person who are living here in Delhi. Finance is a big challenge, and when it comes with saving, and particularly for future, we have to think it. And when someone comes and tell us, then though we know, then we become more serious. So something Ratna has given us on practical aspects, breaking down from a banker's perspective. So this is something really thankful to both of you. Thank you so much.